that. And so if I am so focused on staying on the line, I can't fulfill my assignment. But my God is big enough to handle my fault, my strokes, grubs, my mess ups, because he's already prepared for what I might do. He knows what I'm going to do before I do it, and he already made preparation for me before I get there. What follows darkness is light. That darkness is the indicator that light is getting ready to shine. So there it is in Genesis, when darkness was upon the face of the deep, and God in the spirit form moved upon the face of the waters, and then God said, let there be. Because darkness precedes the light. Are you understanding what I'm saying? But he needs the darkness there so that God can move upon the face of the deep, so that the shift can take place. Let's look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor that shift take place in the darkness. Y'all didn't hear what I just said. Everybody's not going to see the shift that's happening. They see the chaos, but they don't see the shift. They see all the craziness going on in your life, but they don't understand that underneath the darkness, God is moving in secret. He's moving in quiet. He's moving in the hidden places. He's moving in the cracks and the corners and the crevices. He's moving in places that you cannot see. And when the light comes, they're going to see a new order. But untying. And so the universe then has no choice. First attribute of the secret place. The secret place is a place of revelation. It makes you free because it awakens you and makes you consciously aware that everything that you thought Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Emerge Empowerment Session. I am so glad that you are back to join me tonight as we continue our conscious conversation that we began last night under the heading of Who Do You Think You Are? Who do you think you are? And tonight's going to be very impactful. We're going to go a little bit further. We're going to look at the implications behind some of the things that we discussed on last night and see how they impact our everyday life. And so I am excited to be able to continue this conversation with those of you who are sharing with me tonight. I want to ask you, as I always do, to take a moment for about 30 seconds and just share this broadcast on your page. Those of you watching on YouTube, all you have to do is just copy the link when you hit the share button and then share it in all of your group chats and all your group texts and send it out to different friends that you think would benefit from participating in this conversation. Let's try and invite as many people in as we possibly can so that we can have a broad, comprehensive conversation with as many different perspectives and viewpoints as possible. Everybody's viewpoint and perspective is welcome here. I want to hear what everyone thinks, everyone's insight or opinion about certain things and about the subject that we're discussing tonight. I also want to be able to address any questions that you might have. Please do not shy away from asking questions in the comments. I try and keep my eye on the comments as much as I possibly can so that I can address any of the questions or comments that come up during the course of our conversation. So please don't be shy. And I want to say to those of you who don't normally comment or who don't normally say anything, you just kind of Nicodemus coming in by night and just sitting there piercing across the wall. I'd like for you to comment. I'd like to at least for you to say hello and let me know that you're out there, that you're listening, that you're a part of the conversation. Even if you don't say anything else the rest of the way, just say hi real quick and or hello or good evening or whatever way that you'd like to greet everybody. But just say something so that we know that you are out there. Okay, so tonight, first of all, I got a really good question, a very intriguing, good question that was asked after we had finished our conversation last night. And John L. Williams came on. I guess he was watching the replay, and he posted what I thought was a very good, interesting question. And so I want to address that question tonight, as well as all of the others that you might have. Before we do that, though, I want to just kind of quickly, very briefly, recap a little bit of what we discussed last night. So that we can lay a foundation to be able to answer the question that John posed and that I'm going to read to you in just a few moments and then try to address it as well. What we discussed last night was about the incarnation of the soul. When the soul then, which is a part of the all of everything, that is a part of the eternal, infinite, divine isness that we call God, as individualized and then incarnated or enters into three-dimensional human form. I talked about the fact that it is becomes immediately consciously aware of the world that is around it. Now, its world is limited to those collection of cells that are multiplying while it is in that zygote state that begins, multiplication begins usually within 24 to 36 hours after conception takes place. And so its world, if you will, its awareness is more so focused on its oneness with the all of everything, its divine nature. It is fully and completely conscious of its omnipotence, omniscience, omnipresence, omniactiveness, its creatorial power, its ability to do all things, its infinite capacity. It is fully and consciously aware of its divine nature, as well as now its limited consciousness of its limited surrounding and world of these collections of cells that are going through the process cell division as the body is being formed. And we talked about those three different stages of germination, if you will, the prenatal germination that takes place, that is the zygote stage, let me look back at my notes real quick. It left my head just that quick. The zygote stage, the embryonic stage, and then the fetal stage, zygote or the germinal stage, which is when we are the zygote and we are just a collection of cells beginning the process of multiplying and forming out the human form. Then the embryonic stage, usually around week 3 through weeks 8. And then the fetal stage from weeks 9 up until the time of the birth of that human form. And the soul is present there at all through all of that. And it is affected by its own conscious awareness of the world, the physical world that is being formed around it. But then right around the fetal stage, that is around 9 weeks up until the time of its birth, it begins now, the soul becomes not only consciously aware of its oneness with the divine, all of everything, its divine nature, and its immediate physical surroundings, but it begins to also now sense and pick up the vibration sensations of the energy at work around it. While it is in utero, the energy around it in the environment in which the body is being formed. That is, then now it begins to pick up on the vibrational energy or the emotions and feelings of not only the mother, but then the father and others who come into that environment. Good example of this is given in the narrative that is outlined in the Gospels when it talks about when Mary is with child, and so is Elizabeth, and then when Mary comes into the presence of Elizabeth's womb leaps, the baby in the womb leaps because of the presence of the other Christ child that is in Mary's womb. And so it shows how that baby now in utero is affected by the environment around it. And we could go through several other biblical examples, but there's enough scientific information to support this idea. Scientists even tell you, doctors will say that you should, be careful not only about what you eat, but about your moods, about your environment, about the people that are around you, that you're not stressed, that you're not upset, that you're not angry, because all of this has an effect on the fetus, that child that is developing in your body. What is it affecting? Well, it is not affecting the physical formation of the body, the human form. What it's affecting is the soul of that child, because now those vibrations without words, remember there are no words at this point, child has no concept of words, just a symbiotic language of vibrations and sensations, palpitations that are taking place in the external world around it. And this child is able to interpret and discern what it is sensing, and it sends messages to the soul realm. Now, I'm going to pause right there, and I want to address a question that was posted by John L. Williams. I don't know if John, you're on here. If you are, say hello or hi or good evening or something. Give me some kind of a comment to let me know that you're on. And if you're not, then you'll catch it again on the replay as you did before. I'm going to give you a few seconds to make a comment if you happen to be on here. But I want to read his question and then address it, because I think it's a very good question, a vital question that will also trigger some other a much larger conversation. Okay, I think he must not be on with us tonight. Maybe he'll catch this on the replay, but I'm going to read his question to you now. Listen what he says. He says his question is, I have a question, though, about the soul entering the body, he says. Why should the soul enter the body at conception when there are stillbirths and there are abortions? And I'm going to add that there are other kinds of abnormalities and things that can happen to the child in utero, and it will die or be, have other defects prior to its birth. What purpose, he says, would it serve for a soul to never experience life after birth? Wouldn't it make more sense for the soul to enter the body at birth rather than at conception? That is such an outstanding question. And here is the answer. What we have to understand is we have a misunderstanding or a misconception that's been really forged upon us about life itself. We believe that life, as far as our existence, rather, begins at conception, when in fact, conception is the beginning of the formation of the body. The soul is coming into the body at conception for the experience. Ladies and gentlemen, as I've said before, and I'll repeat here again, the soul's entire purpose in entering the three-dimensional realm is for the experience. Not just the experience outside of the uterus, not just the experiences that that humans have in our maturation process going through life, but to experience every part of this thing that we call life or the human experience. And part of that experience includes things like stillbirth or birth defects or malformations. It is beyond the pale a lot of the time for us to even begin to fathom that a soul would willingly volunteer to enter three-dimensional form, knowing that its existence within that form would be very brief or limited to its in utero experience. But first thing is we have to understand is that one, time is an illusion and a delusion. Everything that has happened and will happen is happening right now. Okay. Number two, that it is about the entire purpose is the experience. Number three, that death, as we understand it, is an illusion. That the soul never dies, it simply takes on different forms. And it takes on those forms simply to have the experience. Now, I want you to buckle your seatbelts for just a second. Because I'm going to recount to you an observation that I made while in a conversation with God. In my conversation with God, God began to allow me to observe a gathering of souls that were pre-incarnate, ready to now go through the process of not knowing what they know so they can enter this three-dimensional realm and have a legitimate experience outside of the realm of the knowing. And that these souls, these individuations of soul, these, if you will, little souls, young souls, new souls, preparing to re-enter, there was this one soul that said, I want to experience the highest expression of the divine, which is love and forgiveness. Now, I want you to catch this. Please buckle your seatbelts. Go with me. He said, it said, rather, let me not assign gender to it because it is of no gender. It says, I want to experience the highest expression and form of God, which is love and forgiveness. And it became what I almost interpreted or observed as almost sadness, which is really not sadness. I'm fully consciously aware of the fact that it could not be sadness because there's no such thing as that in that particular realm, but that's how I viewed or observed, and I think it may have been so just for my observation. Because it was like, how do I experience love and forgiveness if there is nothing to forgive? There has to be something for me to forgive in order for me to experience what it's like to love and forgive. And so another individuation soul spoke up and said, I'll do something. I'll volunteer to do something so that you will have the opportunity to experience true love and forgiveness. And so the soul, the first soul began to be very happy and gleeful because it was like, wow, I'm going to get to experience that, and turned to the other soul and was saying, you would do this for me? And it says, of course, because in doing so for you, I am doing so for me because we are one. I only have this one request, that when I do the most heinous, terrible, or hideous, hurtful, painful thing to you, so that you can experience the truest, highest form of love and forgiveness, you will remember me. Remember, reconstruct, recall me, so that you will understand that this is an experience that you asked for, and not despise me, but truly understand that I am providing you what you most desired. And the first soul that made the request says that, of course, I'll always realize that in loving you, I am loving myself and forgiving myself. I told you that experience, that observation, so that you could understand the soul's purpose. The soul's purpose is for the experience. The soul's purpose is for the experience. Experiencing the life, the formation of life and of the human form within the uterus, but also tied to the experience of the soul in the body of the formation of the human that is carrying the life, as well as the soul who helped conceive that form and the life, and those other souls that are by blood related to that life, and every other soul that is affected by the event. All of them agreeing to enter this three-dimensional form for this particular experience. One experience, while there are multiple others, but this is just the one based on the question that was asked. I see you, John. Okay? And so there are souls that volunteer to enter three-dimensional form to experience stillbirth or abortion or some other abnormality, so that the soul that inhabits the form that is carrying the body, that conceived the body, the family that are connected with that body, friends and loved ones, will all agreed to have this experience centered around this particular event. Why? Because God's desire is to experience itself in every aspect of three-dimensional form, of human form. and not just human form, but every form in every dimension across the multiverse and in every place at every time. And so in order to have the fullness of the experience, you have to experience all of what we label the good and the bad, which it's all good because it's all God. Okay, you hear me, Theresa? You on here? It's all good because it's all God. So I hope he says, "I'm here." Great explanation. I was just about to ask. I hope that I'm explaining it well enough. Where does anyone have any questions about what I just explained before I move on to the next part of our conversation for tonight? Anybody have any questions about that? Hey, Bree, we see you. Yeah, see, I wanted to put your comment up, Diana. She said, "Thank you to John, because down through the years, I've wondered the same thing." See, your questions, when you ask a question, you never know who else has been asking or thinking the same thing. That's why I want you to ask questions, no matter what it is. Nothing is off base. Ask questions. Ask questions. Okay? So that is part of the human experience that God wants to have. Because in order for the all of everything to know itself, it has to be what it is not. It is the all of everything, all of everything. And in order to experience all that it has to have what it is not. What it is not must exist in order to experience what is. Just as you cannot experience forgiveness if there is nothing to forgive. You cannot experience love if there's no object of affection. You cannot experience healing if there is no sickness. Are you understanding what I'm saying? The people who declare and celebrate God is a healer, but you cannot really understand or know experientially the healing property of God if there is no sickness. So in order for healing to exist, sickness is mandatory. Are y'all understanding what I'm saying? There is that divine polarity that must exist, that divine dichotomy that must exist. Woo. Yes. Are y'all following me? The comments are slowing down, and I don't know whether you follow me or not. If y'all just sitting quiet and writing things down, I don't know. Let me know something, man. That lets me know at least I'm getting through and I'm making an impact. So all of these things have an impact on the soul. And the soul then, now, once it has reached its full maturation of the fetal process, is born into this three-dimensional world in human form. Having already began to experience the vibrations and the symbiotic language of the environment that surrounds it as it enters three-dimensional form. It hears what we know as adults as words. It hears these words being used and language being exercised by the culture environment and the people around it, and begins to immediately pick up on these words. But they have absolutely nothing to associate the word with. To them, it is just an abstract phrase, an abstract statement, or an abstract word until some adult begins to tell them or give them a visual to associate with that word and those phrases. and as I used last night as the example, and so it looks at a red oblong object and just sees the object until a human says the word that they have learned, which is apple, and then points to this object and says, "This is an apple." And you hold it up to the child and say, "Apple, apple, apple," until the child repeats and says, "Apple." Yes, very good. Apple. You are now training the child to associate the word apple with the object or the picture or the image of this red oblong object, round object. You have now begun to train the child to create this image in their mind whenever they hear the word apple. The same is true for chair and table and mama and daddy. You point to yourself and say, "Mama, mama." Can you say mama? Mama. Can you say daddy? Daddy. And so they began to associate mama and daddy with the image that has been given to them as the definition or the personification of the word that they have been taught. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we do understand that if they are taught a different word or picture association, then they will follow along with that word picture association, even if it is not factual, because children, and many of you who are watching with me right now can attest to this, were taught that this is your mother, this is your dad, only to find out years later that the person you were told was your mother or father are not the one who conceived you. Y'all not hearing what I'm saying yet. When you hear the term mama or daddy, you immediately picture the one that you have learned to associate those words with. Whether it's true or not, that is what you have been taught to believe. You have set in place a belief system. And belief, in many cases, is stronger than truth or knowing. Lord have mercy. That sometimes our belief will lie to the truth. Lord have mercy. Because you have been taught to believe a thing that even in the face of irrefutable proof that what you have believed is not true, you find it difficult to let go of the programming, the entrenched idea that what you have learned to associate this word, the picture you've associated this word with, is not the correct picture. Y'all not hearing what I'm saying? And so you were given words that also you became the picture of. You were told you were dumb and stupid and slow or ugly or lazy, good for nothing. Are you hearing what I'm saying? And so when you hear those words, the picture you have associated with that is you. You look in the mirror and you talk to yourself and start calling yourself dumb or stupid or ugly or broken or slow or lazy. You are harsh in your description of yourself, telling yourself as you sit on the couch, "Get your lazy butt up from here. Get your sorry self up from here. You know you too fat to be doing this. You too You're not smart enough to do that. You're not, you slow. Well, you ain't no need of you going to school and trying to read or study this. You can't do this and you can't do that. Now, never mind that you have been given some contradictory information by others who will say you can do all things. You're in your mind, in your conscious awareness, you have begun to associate yourself with those limiting, disempowering words, and therefore you create the matrix of a reality that aligns itself with that disempowering thought, no matter how much outside external information comes along to contradict it, because it has been ingrained, entrenched within your psyche that this is a limitation that you have, that you are, here it is, come on, my religious folk, that you are a sinner, that you are dirty and filthy and unrighteous, that you are lost and blind, that you are on your way to hell, that you have the handcuffs of hell on your hands and the shackles of damnation on your feet, too mean to live, not fit to die, on your way to a devil's hell, and your only hope is to ascribe to an ideology that has been imposed upon you that says, if you do what I tell you and follow my instruction, then you will go from being a miserable sinner to now being saved. But even while you are saved, you are still miserable and unworthy and sinful. It's only the blood that's making you worthy. Y'all ain't gonna holler back at me now. I know I'm making my church folk a little uncomfortable with me. It's only the blood that's making you worthy. You were born an error. You were born sin. You were born a mistake. You were born wrong. You were born broken. Everything about you was wrong until you happened to have an encounter with a preacher, evangelist, a pastor, a teacher, or a person who proselytized you with the information of their ideology and convinced you that your only way out of your miserable, broken state is to adhere and mentally assent to their idea and their image of God. Ladies and gentlemen, an image that was created by men and that they themselves don't know to be true. Boy, I know I'm making some church folk mad with me right now. And I'm not trying to make you mad. I'm trying to help. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to get you to understand that there was nothing wrong with your birth. That you were not born wrong or broken or filthy or dirty or lost or blind or naked or in peril. You were not born fit for hell. You were not born in sin and shapen in iniquity, which even your Bible doesn't say that about you. David says it about himself, speaking out of his own low self-esteem, speaking out of his own brokenness. He says about himself, I was born in sin and shapen in iniquity. In sin did my mother conceive me, he says about his own self, not God. God never said that about him. God never said that about you. God never said that about anyone. But if I can convince you that there's something wrong with you, that there's something intrinsically and foundationally wrong with you, and then convince you further that your only remedy is to follow what I say, then you are ripe for manipulation and control. Because as long as you do what I say, then I get to tell you you're okay. I give you absolution. I give you forgiveness. I give you that you are accepted by God. But then, if as soon as you piss me off and decide that you want to do something contrary, I get to send you to hell and tell you that you lost and that you don't have the Holy Ghost and that you ain't really saved and you left my church, so you don't really know God. You done went back out into the world and you on your ways to hell. Nonsense. You're no longer my pupil. You're no longer my student. You're no longer my spiritual son and daughter. You're no longer my mentee. You've decided to pull away from me, so you lost. You cut off. Everything that, because I hold your destiny inside of me. Nonsense. You are the God of your garden. You are the arbiter of your life. You are the progenitor of your lived experience in this three-dimensional form. No one can decide your destiny but you. Are you hearing me? Are y'all hearing what I'm saying? I know I got a little bit sidetracked because I wanted to go a little bit further into some other things, and I'm going to get there in these next 15 to 20 minutes that I have left. But I want to make sure that I drive this point home, because so many find themselves in this delusional state, in this mental cage and bondage, emotional bondage, where you have allowed a particular religious ideology, whether it is Christianity, Islam, or Buddhism, Hinduism, or whatever, or even a culture or an environment, lock you into an idea about yourself based upon not who you are, but based upon other people's perception and their beliefs and their ideas about you. And so their ideas and their perceptions and their beliefs about you become your beliefs about you. How many of the thoughts that cascade through your conscious mind originate with you? Or how many of them are your mama's thought and your daddy's thoughts and your cousin's thought and your uncle them's thought and your preacher's thought and your church's thought and your mosque thought and your imam's thought and your guru's thought and your husband's thought and your wife's thought and your cousin's thought and your friends and your teacher and your guidance counselor and your environment and your culture? How many of them originated with you, and how many of them have been formulated by external forces, all of them imposing their perception upon who you really are? And because the imposition is so consistent, it is so repetitive, it is so pugnacious, it is so dogged that it echoes in your mind and faith. What you accept or believe to be your truth comes by echion, hearing, echo. What we consistently hear, we tend to accept and believe. And you have built a belief system on sandcastles. The sandcastles of ideas and concepts of external forces. And not all of them are of maladaptive intent, not a malicious intent. Not all of them, many of them thought they were doing you a favor, that they were doing what was best for you, that they were looking out for your best and your highest good, but they were unconsciously unaware of how much harm they were doing, because the same thing had been done to them. And so they were just passing on to you what had been passed on to them, which was passed on to the generation before them, which was passed on to the generation before them. And this generational mindset of captivity, of victimology, is passed down from one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, until someone consciously awakens and says, "No more." Are you hearing what I'm saying to you? And many of you that are tuning in and that have been following this particular platform are that person, have reached that status where you are saying no more. I want to investigate and go inward and sit with my own soul so that I can begin to discern my real, true, authentic voice. Not the voice of my trauma, not the voice of my hurt, not the voice of my disappointment, not the voice of my family, not the voice of my culture, not the voice of my religion, but what is emanating from within me, emerging. That's where the name for this particular platform comes from. The movement is called Emerge because it's about you emerging from underneath all of the other gunk and noise that has been piled on your soul from in utero up until now, and coming into the light, out of the darkness into the marvelous light of your own true consciousness, your true self, your own divinity. Are you hearing what I'm saying to you? Woo. I know it's a little warm. I'm sweating like crazy, but I hope I'm getting through to you. Are you hearing me? Why is this so important? Because, ladies and gentlemen, please listen to me. Please listen and comprehend what I'm getting ready to say to you. Because you and I, we make decisions based upon what we believe about ourselves. You choose the job, the career, the place that you will live, the relationships that you will sustain or pursue, based upon what you think about yourself. Your perception of self begins to set a value system within you that tells you you deserve this, but you don't deserve that. You deserve this, but you don't deserve that. You can have this, but you cannot have that. That you can go here, but you cannot go there. That you can be a part of this, but you cannot be a part of that. That limits you because of what you have become to perceive about yourself. You look in the mirror and you see someone who you have now decided, based upon all of the external forces continuously reinforcing this in your conscious mind, that you are a person who's slow. And so you decide school's not for me. Education's not for me. I'm never going to be able to go to college. I've never been very book smart. I don't know how. I can't get all that adding and subtracting and doing all those other kinds of mathematics. And no, that just ain't for me. You know, everybody don't go to college. Everybody ain't for everybody. I just can't do that. Who said you can? Who told you that you can't? Who told you that do you understand that as a divine being, you have infinite, limitless capacity to do, to know, to achieve anything that you desire? That the only thing that limits you is your own perception of yourself? You enter into relationships with the kinds of people that you purposely, most times unconsciously, attract into your life because you think that's what you deserve. That's what you can manage. That's what you can handle. That matches where you are. Are you hearing me? You are bombarded with all of this external information coming from cousins and aunties and friends and families and reality TV. Y'all not hearing me? And music and magazines and media and social media that tells you you ought to think like this, behave like this, feel like this, respond like this. And so because of that groupthink mentality that is associated with social media, you find yourself now going along and adjusting your perception of yourself. Imagine that you sit around and call yourself stupid or dumb or crazy or bitch and hoe. I'm that bitch. I'm that. That's not the kind of bitch I am. A real bitch would do this, that, and that. You are actually calling yourself a female dog. You are degrading and belittling yourself and think that you are doing it have taken power over the word and somehow made it your own and now made it a term of endearment. And so you greet your friend, hey, bitch! That's my dog. That's my nigga. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Are you hearing me? And so you have this view, this Real Housewives of Atlanta, Real Housewives of LA, Real Housewives, loving hip hop, a mentality about who you are and what life is supposed to be and how relationships are supposed to be. And you are looking at something that has been constructed to entertain and draw you in and sell the sponsor's product. Yet you buy into it hook, line, and sinker and begin to now change your perception of yourself based upon an illusion. Based upon an illusion on a movie screen, on a television show, in a magazine, on social media, reading all of these, and people put up posts that perpetrate a lie and try to create an image that does not reflect who they are, but what they aspire to have other people think about who they are rather than who they truly are, because most are not in touch with who they really are in the first place. Or their perception of themselves is so low, so broken, so twisted, so deformed that they dare not express what they really feel about themselves. Are you hearing what I'm saying? What you think of yourself, it bleeds over into your decision making. Your decisions about relationships, about job, about your location. Many of you have been stuck in one place your entire life, not because you have had the opportunity to leave and go other places to experience life on a grander scale, a larger scale, to go into other, no, but because you have been convinced that you are just you. This is where you need to be, right here. You grew up here. Where you going? And folk will even tell you, well, listen, ain't no need of you running way over there, because when you get there, you still gonna be there. You the same person here that you were there. No, you may not be the same person, because the exposure to a larger environment can begin to shift your conscious mindset, and you start to evolve and change because you adapt to the new environment. I'm just a country girl. Who decided that? You decided that. When did you decide that? Because that's what your mama was, your daddy was, your granddaddy, your grandmama, and everybody told you that we country people. We gonna always be country folks. Child, you can take the other girl out the country, but you can't take the country out the girl. Y'all ain't hearing what I'm saying. Come on. And so you limit yourself to living that made up idea of what it means to be a country person or a city person. Because it works on both sides. Are you understanding? When in fact, what you were released and incarnated within this three-dimensional form to do, the ultimate purpose of your being is to have a life unlimited, a life that where you experience life to its abundance, the fullness of life, all of the vast opportunities that life has to offer you, as many as you can squeeze into the time period from your birth until your transition to the reiteration of it into form again, to experience as much of it as you possibly can, not to write about it, not to brag about it, not to try and flaunt it in other people's face, not trying to prove anything, but to literally have the experience. Have the experience. You can't do it if you're stuck in that one place of limitation that says you can't, you just can't, you can't. It's too big, it's too scary, it's too much, it's too far, it's too much to hope for, it's too high up. I can't do it. Are you hearing me? Are you hearing what I'm saying? And we all have done it. We've all experienced it. We're experiencing it now. And we've all been victims of it because our parents and our grandparents did what was done to them and said to us what was said to them. And so they made us think that we had to perform at a certain level and be a certain thing and accomplish certain things in order for them to be proud. Y'all not hearing me? In order for us to make something of our life. To be somebody. Not like the fact of my existence is not enough. The miracle of my being is not enough. No, you gotta be somebody. Who you gonna grow up to be? Because who you are is unimpressive. And so we're not ever given the opportunity to discover or rediscover who we came here to be and what we came here to experience until much later in life when you have these kind of encounters that forces you to look inward and say, what am I doing and why am I here? What do I think about myself? What have I limited myself to because of what I believe about me? Huh? It is a dangerous thing for a person to think too highly of themselves, but it is equally dangerous for you to think too lowly of yourself. I'm not better than anyone, but I am certainly better than certain situations and circumstances and relationships. Are you understanding what I'm saying? I'm not saying I'm better than another human being, but I'm better than that. I'm better than this. I'm better than, are you hearing what I'm saying? Than the limitations of this particular circumstance or situation or confine or encounter or relationship. I'm better than this. Because I'm constantly evolving and growing and becoming. I am better than, I may not have been better than when I entered, but I'm better than now. And so it's no shame in me saying I've outgrown this and it's time to move on to that. Woo. Let me put my glasses on. I see a lot of comments coming up, but I can't read them because I don't have my glasses on. Okay. People who never tried to better themselves. That crab in the barrel mentality. Absolutely. John says, tell it like it is, Brother Isaac. Keep speaking the truth about inappropriate behavior. Yes. Say that you're helping me today. Real talk. That's Lawrence. Hey, man. How you doing, Lawrence? Good to see you, man. A lot of what you're talking about is self-fulfilling prophecy theory. Absolutely. I don't know how many people had heard of that particular statement before, but that is absolute self-fulfilling prophecy theory, where you have accepted a lie, a delusion about yourself, and so you live out that lie and make it your reality. Absolutely. So you come to believe that you're slow, or you come to believe that you're lazy, or you come to believe that you're dumb, or you're stupid, or you're ugly. Y'all not hearing what I'm saying? Then so you start to live out that, and you are living in the matrix of a reality that you've created that's based upon a lie, based upon a delusion. Huh? I read something that I want to share with you real quick. I know I'm over time already. I'm over time, but I'm going to share this with you, and then we're going to go. Jack Canfield, and if you don't know who that is, you know his book that he wrote, Chicken Soup for the Soul. Okay? He wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, and that whole Chicken Soup for the Soul volumes, like several different series that he wrote. But he conducted a study where he followed a group of students from elementary school to high school. Listen, in the study, he had them to do a self-esteem assessment. The group, while in elementary school, scored 80% or higher in having a positive self-esteem about themselves. 80% or higher. By the time they reached the 5th grade, only 20% of those same students tested 80% or higher. By the time they reached high school, only 5% of those same students tested 80% or higher. Watch this. And by the time of their senior year of high school, only 1.5% of them scored 80% or higher. In other words, over time, with continuous exposure to their varying environments, influences, and outside sources, their view and perception of themselves diminished. Consequently, their behavior patterns changed, their focus changed, their goals changed, their comprehension shifted. They began to experience all of these different shifts and changes in their person because they changed their view of themselves. Because how you view yourself determines your behaviors, your choices, your decisions, your outlook, your perception, and how you experience life. Let me say that again. How you view yourself. It shapes how you behave, your choices, your decisions, your perception, and how you experience life in this three-dimensional form. Oh, let me read this. John says, I was blessed to have a wonderful family member always telling me how smart and kind I was growing up. And this instilled confidence in me that has been with me my entire... Exactly. Okay. And I fully admit I haven't always knew this. I didn't always understand this. And I was taught just like most of you on here were taught, and these contradictory messages of, even before I had any real understanding or concept of God, I had already been taught in my household that if you behave a certain way, you were considered good. You were considered a good boy, smart boy, one of my best babies, my love, my sweetie. And when you behaved a different way, you were bad and ugly and mean and deserving of punishment. That mama's love was conditioned upon your behavior. How she treated you was conditioned on your behavior. Then I got to church, and it was no big wonder that I embraced wholeheartedly a God that behaved the same way. I love you, I'm with you, and I'll reward you as long as you're doing what I tell you to do. But when you don't, if you behave in a way that's not in my book, that doesn't fit the rules and the regulations, then I'm going to get you. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to whip you. I'm going to punish you. And ultimately, if I catch you with your work undone, I'm sending you to hell to be tormented forever. But I love you unconditionally. idiotic, stupid, and simple does that sound? How can love be unconditional and conditional? Are y'all hearing what I'm saying? Are you hearing me? And so our parents will learn to manage our behavior rather than love us unconditionally and actually raise and develop us. They weren't raising us, they were managing behavior. Come on. And those of us who were parents, we did the same thing. So we learned how to manage our child's behavior with whippings and punishments and harsh words and y'all not hearing me, and demands, and you don't have a choice, and you gonna do this, and this is what you do because I said so. And in doing so, we begin to shape their view of themselves, not even giving them the space to develop their own true, earnest perception of themselves without our value judgments and without our behavioral management. Ooh, I know this is a tough one right here to swallow. Okay? I have to keep putting my glasses on. John says, I'm self-assured, not arrogant nor cocky. That's good. Diana says, but they thought they were raising up a child in the way they should go. A lot of religious rhetoric that was misinterpreted, misconstrued. And so we did, and especially with African Americans here in this country, we began to do to our children what the slave masters did to us. And our mindset and thought was that if I do it to you, I can have some mercy because the slave master won't. So I'm going to use the same tactic. I'm just not going to be as severe as the slave master. Don't get me started, y'all. I know y'all don't want to have that conversation. The whole time we are providing the building blocks for a broken concept of self. Teresa says, that's why I am speaking and teaching my grandchildren and great-grandchildren really differently so they won't have to wait to learn when they get old. Amen. Me too. I'm trying to make sure that I make a turnaround and do better where my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren are concerned. And we had to go the way they told us. We had no opinions, no options, no thoughts. Exactly. That was considered talking back. You get the fire knocked out you. Are you understanding what I'm saying? That kind of hard iron fist of manipulation and control, you have no choice. And that carried right over to when we went to church. And so it was no big deal for us to then transfer that information over to God. You have no choice. You better do what I say or I'm going to get that butt. Are you hearing me? Yes, Teresa. Not just teaching it, but living it out. Okay? So, all right, I'm going to stop here. I'm over time by 10 minutes. I'm 10 minutes over time. We'll be back tomorrow night. There's more. I'm going to take you even further in this conversation tomorrow night, 7:30. Make sure that you join me here. I promise you, you won't be disappointed. I promise you, you will not regret it. Thank you for participating in tonight's empowerment session and this conversation. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you'd like to give in order to support this platform, you know how to do so. The information is on your screen right now. You can use our Cashapp or our Zelle and give whatever amount that you'd like to give, sow whatever seed you'd like to sow. And those of you who are using us as the vessel through which you channel your tithe, we gladly receive your tithe gratefully, and we appreciate your willingness to give. I often say, and I want to repeat again, that tithing is not an obligation, it is an opportunity. It is a practical principle of giving that absolutely works for those who do it out of the pureness of their heart and not under constraint or because they feel like they have to do so, but doing it because they choose to follow the principles of sowing and reaping and giving and increase and so on and so forth. So I appreciate those of you who tithe with this particular platform, as well as those of you who give or sow or are generous in endowing us with the funds that we need in order to be able to continue the work that we are doing. All right. So thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you on tomorrow night at 7:30. If you haven't signed up for the free text notification, sign up now so that you'll get a text notifying you when we're getting ready to come on the air. Oh, I missed some comments over here. See, I know why you used to say something to me when I was saying, yeah, exactly. It was why. Because I had learned better and I was trying to help you along the way. Yes, girl. Okay. Yvette says, I'm trying to do better. That's for sure. Thank God for melatonin. I don't think that that's better, Yvette. Melatonin is not better. Like giving the kid NyQuil. All right, y'all. I will see you tomorrow night at 7:30. Until then, you have the absolute best night ever.